Since saying people who believe art can be objectively measured is too long, I'll call them objectivists. It's not like anyone else is using that word. I'm not going to make a term for the opposite because art isn't objective. Probably. Okay, time to establish definitions to ensure mutual understanding. Objective means not influenced by biases or emotions. Alright, that works. It makes sense to want to avoid those things in studies to reach accurate conclusions. Like, if you asked a bunch of students how big their families are for a survey on average family size, couples that lack children won't be represented, and our mean will be too big. This thought experiment led to my class feeling like all studies have at least some bias, which wasn't what my statistics teacher wanted us to feel. How much of our lives are influenced by our feelings? You know, logic, that thing, it's the result of our emotions. Hypothetical scenario time. In a box is $1 million, but there's a 1 out of 4 chance a blade will chop your hand when you reach for it. Do you try to get it? Now, you should have a strong jolt of fear over the idea of possibly suffering a severe wound, but is this a rational reaction? Think about it. The risk is small for $1 million, and even if it does happen, it's only one hand. You got another. The chances of getting the chop twice in a row are a mere 1 out of 16. The odds of getting that money either way are high. But thinking this way is dangerous for a hairless ape in an unpredictable wilderness, hence why we evolved emotions. We literally only make babies because it feels good. So why do objectivists dislike them, or at the very least don't want anyone using them to justify calling guilty pleasures good works of art? Wait, it'd be super duper facetious of me to not mention how emotional interpretations can lead to harm. If the existence of trans people makes you upset, that doesn't mean they're bad. You're just letting thoughtless hatred make you reactionary. When does fantasy become science fantasy, which then becomes science fiction? They're all under the umbrella of speculative fiction, including alternate history and horror. So they're all under the same classification. Do we need those smaller groups? The differences between them are based on aesthetics and what they make you feel. We're back to feelings. They're literally in the names. So what are genres? Oh, they're just ways of sorting similar works of art. Like morphological taxonomy, which is how we get people thinking dolphins are fish. Are Marvel movies a genre? Call of Duty games? Children's cartoons? And even then, how do we know what genres a piece of media belongs to? If you view The Room as a comedy, it can be entertaining. If you view Cats 2019 as horror, it can be scary. But they probably weren't supposed to be those genres. Then again, the dudes telling the tales of Beowulf weren't trying to write an epic. They were just making a story that people retroactively called an epic. Genre is mostly a marketing tool. Art costs money, so making sure customers can find products helps pay for art. Would we still have genres if capitalism was purged from civilization? Maybe. We still want to find art that we think we'll enjoy, but it probably would be less set in stone. Capitalism likes having neat little sorting boxes and controlling how they're defined to best advertise to demographics. Marketers saw that some people make babies, and some people put babies in them, then decided to sell separate women's and men's razors at different prices to make a little extra cash. The relationship between chromosomes, gene expression, and environmental factors is very complicated, so this binary reduces us to customer type 1 and type 2. But aren't men factually smarter than females? Feelings are associated with vulnerability, while rationality is associated with mastery. They're also associated with femininity and masculinity, respectively, the former being seen as negative and the latter being seen as positive despite quality having nothing to do with them. Opinions on these traits affect how we treat people that have them. The fact that I'm human is a matter of logic. Whether I deserve human respect is a matter of opinion. There's also something to be said about how objectivists only deal with what's directly stated, like they refuse to acknowledge subtext, or coding, or themes, or anything that could possibly be up to interpretation, and they also refuse to acknowledge dog whistles. For those who don't experience those, imagine going about your day only to notice a signal targeted towards your people with disdain. And no one outside of your group notices it, or thinks it's targeted towards anybody. You're stuck with this strong feeling of being unwelcome in their spaces. You can't explain it to them as they'll think you're making it up, or being overly sensitive, or worse, they'll reveal that they flat out don't accept you. Better to just shut up. The screenwriter for Sad Dog Movie, The Art of Racing in the Rain, probably didn't intend for their piece to be about capitalism, but it's a huge source of conflict in the movie. Maybe Megamind wasn't about toxic masculinity, but it was a great springboard to discuss it because it says so much even by accident, since patriarchy is so ingrained into how we interact with each other. There is no single lens to view a movie, nor is there an answer that we must all strive for. We all have our own truths to explore. And maybe it's more important for an art piece to make you think or feel something, which is a fun way to exercise your brain, than for it to be unquestionably good. So what are we doing here having this conversation? Even if there is an objective grading sheet for artistic perfection out there, 1. It would be either made by humans or by technology made by humans that would be based on criteria that was decided by people with all of their biases. You ever hear of that AI that was supposed to enhance blurry images but could only generate white people? That's bias. And 2, the moment that sheet is known, then all art must conform to be profitable, and all deviations will be underfunded since no one wants to support something that won't make them all money in existence, which we already tried to do from market research. So if neither artists nor audiences benefit from this rigid categorization of what art deserves to be seen, then who does? Objectivism is defined as the belief that human understanding of the world is objective. Now, we could just leave that there after going through how the ways we experience art are subjective, but there's a certain explanation that comes forth to deal with this evidence. Yes, there are so many messy perspectives, but the correct one shall be found, and it must be dictated by an authority. Sometimes that authority is a public intellectual or an influencer, but both give off the air of being esteemed. Look at their fancy setup. Listen to how in control of the debate they are. Obviously, they know what they're talking about. Don't you want to agree with them? Don't think too much about what they're actually saying. And when the authority isn't an admirable individual, it's a consensus that probably isn't objective either, since multiple people can believe a wrong thing. Just because a movie made a lot of money doesn't mean that it's good, you capitalist. But it's an easy metric that doesn't require any thinking, and it appeals to us as a social species. Agree with the group because you don't want to rock the boat. Freedom is scary because it means there's the potential to be wrong and shamed. So objectivists cling to the opinions decided for them while claiming they're objective. Pointing out that these standards are subjective threatens their security in what's normal. Art is and has been political, but they often ignore this. Thus, forcing them to acknowledge it will be met with a hostile reaction as this goes against their normal. Now that I crescendoed into discussing that, what should we do? Be open-minded and don't worship cults of personality. Everyone can think things that are factually false or potentially harmful, so a little skepticism helps avoid putting people on pedestals. And obviously you're allowed to review stuff, just accept that it's an opinion that some might find useful or entertaining, and not the final say for something's right to exist. Wow, I can't believe I wrapped up that debate so succinctly. But given how super cool my other videos are, it's not a surprise. I hope seeing how much objectivism has to enforce itself onto others despite insisting it's natural has made you think of other systems that do the same. Like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, bye.